Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a review of btminers.com's repair service. So I did have a hashboard that went down, sent it out for repair, documented the whole process, going to go over prices, how long it took, my overall opinion of it, which just as a quick heads up, is not very good. Right? So we're going to go over the details, going to go over everything that happened, everything that transpired, and how I'm going to continue to do some of these reviews in the future. Right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. So let's get right to it. So just in general, just want to throw this out, not trying to bash them, right? So the goal of this video is to try to find a good repair service that we can go to, right? Whether it's through them, through another place, that's the end goal, right? We want to find a place because this is the first issue I've really had, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to have issues as well, and it's important for us to be able to find one that we can trust, that we can go through in the future, right? So that's going to be the purpose of these reviews. If I have another issue, I'll be going through another vendor and doing the same thing, right? So I'm going to give you all the facts. You can come up with your own conclusion, but you're going to see real quick what I think of it, right? So let's go through the criteria of the review. So two big things, right? Number one, it's going to be from an anonymous account, right? The reviews are not going to have any ties to this YouTube, any ties to it being for review, right? It's just going to be Joe Blow reaching out, going through the process so we have a realistic representation of what it is, right? Because if I go out and say, hey, I want to do a review on your service, what's going to happen? It's not going to be realistic. It's not going to be a realistic representation of what it is. So I hate seeing reviews like that where people are like reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'm going to do this for review. Then what do you think is going to happen, man? It's not going to be realistic, right? So that's a super huge criteria. The other big thing was to have zero interference from my part, right? Essentially just let the system play out, which to give you the heads up, I did have to break that rule because of what was going on, right? So we'll talk about that here in a second. So a couple things to consider, right? And the reason I definitely did want to do a review and want to continue these reviews is that it's hard to find repair services, number one. Number two, even harder to find them that will be willing to work on altcoin miners, right? Reason being, the few that I reached out to, as soon as I mentioned that it was for a K7, they became hesitant, the price went up, and then the window went up, right? And some of them kind of downright just said, no, we're busy enough, we're good, right? Reason being is because a lot of them tend to be specifically Bitcoin miners, right? And they have parts on deck, they have chips ready to go, they have inventory ready to go, and I'm sure a lot of them have a lot of work, right? So this one being number one, a K7, which they probably don't have spare chips laying around, they'd have to wait for them to come in. Number two, it being on an aluminum backed board, being the more difficult boards to work on. So they were a little more hesitant, so I did see that BT Miners did have a repair service, so I decided to go through them, right? So let's start going through these facts, right? So their repair service, when you go on their website, they do have, what was kind of intriguing, they do have like a little dashboard set up, right? So you can go to it, you'll get a little number, you put in your tracking number once you send it out, then they have a little area where they would do a unboxing video, and they would kind of keep you updated, right? So this would have been pretty cool if they would have done it. It was never updated, right? So kind of crappy. Oh well, whatever. Maybe it's an old system, they don't use it anymore. Whatever. So let's go to the timeline, right? So I emailed them with the inquiry, like, hey, you know how much is it gonna be? So prices were $250 for the repair, $50 diagnostic fee, and then $35 shipping, and then it can take up to 30 days. All right. So I said, all right, it's for review. Let's do it. So I went with it. So I shipped it out August 16th. They received it August 21st. Okay, so August 21st is when this started. On August 30th, which is 9 days later, I got a quote for payment, right? So they send out the invoice, the address, how much it is, etc., etc. So I got it, made the payment the following day, and then sent out an email that same day saying, hey, this was the details, this was the payment that was sent, this is the address it was sent to, this was the amount, just giving all the transaction info, right? So then from there, didn't hear anything, right? So a week went by, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by, which typically also you're going to email them, right? You're going to but again, that was going to be one of the things is that I was going to wait. So after the 5th week, right, so 5 weeks, it's well beyond their 30-day window, I finally emailed them and say, hey, can I get an update on that board? Which their response was, did you ever get a receipt? And I responded, no, but here's all the transaction info again. And again, I sent that email on that day, right? So then that same day, I get a receipt from them and said that I was going to ship the next day, right? So to me, indicating what? That it was probably done probably a while back and it had just got either forgotten about or just sitting there for 5 weeks, right? So then kind of wanted to inquire about it. So then I emailed them back saying, hey, so has it been done since August 30th and you guys just forgot about it? Kind of expecting them to respond like either, oh, we were backlogged and we just finished it last week, or yeah, it has been done since August 30th, but it got lost under paperwork and we forgot about it. Sorry about that. Something of that sort, right? So kind of just sent it with that intent. And the response was that this is a person who runs the front end, I'm guessing, that they weren't told anything from the tech and that they only deal with sending out invoices and receiving invoices. And that was it, right? So it was kind of giving them an opening right there to like, hey, even if that was a response, I was expecting another email, hey, I spoke to my tech and blah, blah, blah. Or I spoke to my whatever. Something kind of just acknowledging it and saying, sorry about that. Zero response, right? So at the end of the day, it is what it is, whatever about that, right? So October 10th is when I finally received it, right? So again, they've had it since August 21st, right? So October 10th is when I finally have it in hand. And this is where it gets a little crappy, right? So I got this thing. As soon as I picked it up, number one, no paperwork in there, nothing in there mentioning anything, right? So then as soon as I pick it up, 4 of the screws just fall out, right? So I go in there and I look, and there's no way to like screw them in there. They were like messed up to the point where there's no more thread and there's no way to like screw anything in, right? So it's not the screws that were damaged, it's the thread on the inside, right? So super disappointing there, right? And then as I look closer, you can see here, you can see the bent fins on the freaking heatsink. And then as you look closer, a lot of the screws are like rounded out to the point where pretty much going to be no way to remove them again, right? Without causing damage to them, right? So super disappointed to see that, right? It's one thing if it's one screw or another screw, but it was the majority of the screws were like that, right? So not off to a good start. Not all the screws, but I'd say at least like half the screws, right? But again, 4 of them were completely to the point where there's no way to put them in, right? And it would have been nice if they would have at least put a note in there. Hey, sorry about the damage. Sorry about messing up the heat plate. Sorry about not being able to put the screws back in. Something, right? So then I look at it closer, and again, there's more. Another one that was bent there. You can see how damaged that screw is. And then freaking thermal paste like all over, which again is another like whatever because it just wipes off. But it's just it's just not a good look, right? So I was like, all right, whatever. Maybe they at least repaired it. So I went to go put it in, and it worked for a few minutes, and then same issue, right? So on top of all the damage done to the board, right? Because again, this is only a 6-month-old miner, right? So a lot of damage that, which for me, the main reason I was annoyed with it is that it's going to affect resale value, right? Somebody's inspecting it, taking it out. It's not something you can buy like off the shelf, right? Those heat sinks, it's a pain in the ass, right? So whatever. So I got it, disappointed with it, right? So I emailed them back like, hey, giving them the pictures of everything, letting them know what was done, the damage done, the condition of this. And the response was, oh, sorry about that. They apologized, which is one thing, but I specifically mentioned in that email, like, hey, damage was done to the board, right? Like, not necessarily looking for compensation, but seeing what they would do about it. So they did apologize. They did send it back. Their response was, as far as like compensation goes to fix or whatever, is that they would remove the diagnostic fee if I had another issue in the future, right? So $50 off. Come up with your own opinion if you think that's fair for the damage done here, but that's what the response was, right? So they did Acknowledged though that, sorry about that, I'll speak to my tech. And then when they spoke to the tech, they said that the damage was done because they were blaming the damage to the screws on corrosion, right? They were saying because they know that it's from Florida, right? And they have ties to Florida actually because their phone numbers have the same area code. So not only Florida, they actually had some ties with Tampa because it's the same area code, right? So they were blaming it on corrosion from the minerals in the air, etc., which to me made zero sense because again, I've had miners, I've had my freaking GPUs and stuff in there for 3 years, zero rust, zero corrosion. I repatted them, repasted them, zero issues on that front. How these things round out is from not using the correct tools, right? Using a bit that's too soft, that's too small, and that's how you round it out by using a drill when maybe you shouldn't have. Whatever, right? So a little annoyed that they tried blaming that on the cause of it, but whatever. They acknowledged the damage, they acknowledged it. They said, we'll fix it, we'll send it back. So I sent it back. And so when did I get it back? So I sent it back like a few days later, maybe 3 days later, and then I finally got it back on October 31st, which was Halloween. Let's go over those pictures. So a little bit better. They did replace the heat sinks, I noticed, because they were no longer bent, right? So that was a plus. There's only 3 screws that are missing now, right? So that's an improvement, although kind of not really. Different situation here though, right? With the other case, there was no way to thread them in. Now, in this case, the issue is that the heads were snapped off, right? So it's kind of hard to see because it's really small, but if you look through, it is solid in there. So to me, what it seems like is they probably screwed it, but way too tight to the point where it ripped the head off, right? But again, the benefit is now it's only 3 screws and it's not all on the same line, right? That was another thing I did forget to mention is another concern I had with the damage that was done is that a lot of the screws missing were all along the same row and that it could affect the temperature of the board, right? So again, when they responded, they said what they said, and they said that it's not going to affect the temperature of the board, right? But when we look at the pictures, let's go to the other one. You can actually see here when it worked, it did work for a few minutes, right? So it worked for a few minutes. It did read the 92 chips. And then like 10 minutes later, it dropped down to reading only 73 chips, right? It went abnormal first. Then instead of getting hardware errors like crazy, read the 73 chips. You can see here though, the outlet temp. Look at the temperature difference on the board that is messed up, right? So it was definitely affecting the temperature there. So regardless, as soon as I rebooted, because it now had that error, as soon as it reads that doesn't have the 92 chips, it won't allow that board to function. So upon reboot, it's no longer reading that board, right? So they're getting there, right? We went from reading 0 to at least 73 now. So it's kind of an improvement. So I do have to send it back. So when I emailed them again, saying what happened, they said, well, we tested it. It was working. We tested it overnight. And they did send in pictures this time with it. So this time in the box, they included screenshots of it working, right? Again, there's no real way to verify, but I would think that that's the case. So they did send that in, so that was at least a plus. So now they offered for me to send in the entire unit back. For me to ship the unit, they're going to pay for the shipping, and I'm going to send it back. So I did request for them if I could wait until after the halving, because again, CKB, we got their halving coming up in 8 days, right? So that's even a bigger annoyance with the whole thing is that it's been on like such a small timeline, right? I've been mining on only 2 boards for the past almost 3 months now, right? And again, the goal here and the reason I went with them is to try to get it done ASAP because of this having to try to mine as much as I can, right? So on top of the damage done to the board and the lost revenue, right? To me, that's the real big kicker, right? It's freaking 3 months of lost revenue on that board, right? Which sucks because again, after the halving, we did have this little pump. Hopefully we do stay where we're at. It would be break even, right? But realistically, it's mostly going to be at a loss here fairly soon, right? So it was time to maximize these past 3 months, right? So pretty crappy. So again, just to sum up, again, we're almost 3 months later. This thing's still not fixed. Going to send it back probably the day after the halving for them to diagnose the whole thing. I will put an update. If it does get fixed, I will put a pinned comment in there letting you know what the fix was. I was going to wait until the whole thing, but at this point, It's been freaking 3 months, bro. At this point, I just wanted to put it out because it was getting to the point where I was like getting fuzzy on the facts, right? So I had to write everything down just to put it out there, right? So, took a long time. Damage done to the board. The compensation was $50 off the diagnostic fee if I were to have another repair issue. Which, number one, put in the comments, let me know, do you think that's fair compensation for the damage done to the board, right? Again, this is as like a review, so I didn't want to be pushy and say, hey, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to let it play out just in case they do fix it better, I guess, next time. I don't know. I don't even know what the compensation would be at this point. If any, at this point, I just want the damn thing to work, right? I'll be happy with it at that point. But let me know in the comments what you guys think, right? Would you for me, I'll say right off the bat, would I recommend it to somebody? Hell to the no, right? I would much rather try another spot, right? Specifically just because, again, if they should have been just more open about it, talked about it more from the get-go without me having to interfere and say something about it, right? It's just not a good look. But again, the end goal here is for them to improve these things, which they did improve some things on the second batch. They were open, they were communicating a little bit better, and that's kind of the goal. Hopefully they do fix these things. And if issues do happen, hopefully they take that feedback, because I did give them an email with all the feedback that I would like to see, right? Which is mainly opening that line of communication better, right? The communication should have been there throughout the process, throughout the thing. Like if they would have emailed me, giving me the heads up, like, hey, we fucked up your board, and it would have made things at least a little bit more palatable. But to wait all that time, have all that happen, have them forget about it, not acknowledge it, get all the damage done to the board, and for that to be the response, super disappointing, right? So again, hopefully they do fix these things so we can have an option for repair. But again, would I personally recommend them to somebody? No. I would rather go to somebody else. I would rather try another review. If any of you guys have had issues with specifically altcoin miners, right? Again, there's a lot of options with BTC miners. If any of you guys have had repair issues or gotten repairs done by a company, please post them. Let us know how it went, what happened. If there's any places you guys would recommend that I try next, please let me know in the comments, right? Because again, this is the first issue I've ever had. I'm sure it's not going to be the last, right? But again, just giving you guys the facts, letting you guys know what happened, how it's been going. Now, would I stop using BT miners as a whole? Not necessarily. I would still buy through them, right? Buying through them, I've had zero issues with them. I would say it's been good customer service actually through the buying process. The repair service, hopefully they're getting the hint as to what to fix, what to do. Would I use them again? No, right? This is going to be the first and probably the last time I use them. It's up to you if you want to try them. Hopefully it does seem like they are doing better, right? They are trying to correct their wrongs. Is it enough? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Do you guys think? Let me know, right? Again, I'm presenting the facts. Let me know what y'all think, right? So let me know, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, guys, and I am out.